The unexpected reunion, the tycoon, the ex, and the secret. Before we begin this emotional roller coaster, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and tell us in the comments, where are you tuning in from? Your support fuels this channel to keep sharing stories that speak to the heart. The shocking opening hook, a white corridor and a blast from the past. He walked into the hospital by chance, but he never imagined that one white corridor would make time stop. Lying on a gurney, in active labor and utterly alone, was her. The woman he had loved, lost, and never forgotten. But what happened next was something no one in that sterile hallway could have predicted. It was just another ordinary morning for Damien Cross. A tailored suit, an expensive watch on his wrist, and a head full of meetings. The hospital visit was part of his company's corporate philanthropy. He'd been invited to tour the new pediatric wing his foundation was funding. Nothing about the day suggested the past was about to violently unfold before him. With the force of a gale, he turned the corner. The hallway smelled of antiseptic, but something stronger instantly froze him in place. There, on a gurney being rushed past by nurses, he saw a face that time had failed to erase. Hair wet with sweat, an expression contorted in pain, eyes squeezed shut as if trying to escape reality itself. It was her, Sienna Reyes. Her name echoed inside him like a desperate whisper. His body reacted before his reason. He lunged forward 2 steps, stunned, as if his feet already knew the path. But it was her voice, weak and bitter, that made him freeze. "No, not you," she saw him. And even between contractions, even gasping for breath, she found the strength to reject him. A mixture of physical and emotional agony seemed to explode within her. The look she threw him was sharp, as if every contained tear carried the memory of something he still didn't fully comprehend. "You're alone?" he asked, surprised and visibly shaken. "Sienna, let me help." "I've been left before, Damien. I don't need any more help from you. Get out of the way." The nurses rushed her down the hall. He stood there, paralyzed. He didn't know if what he felt was shock, guilt, despair, or all of it combined. 2 years. That was the time since they had divorced. A cold, formal split, signed with more lingering bitterness than actual words. He never quite understood why things crumbled so fast. Their marriage had turned into silence. Silence turned into distance, and distance turned into abandonment. And now, here she was, in labor, bone, with a look that screamed, "You are not welcome." Damien stood there for a few more seconds, staring at the void where she had been. The footsteps, the medical voices, the beeping monitors, everything faded into distant noise. It was as if only the echo of an unresolved past vibrated off the hospital's white walls. He ran a hand over his face, trying to process the flood of emotions. It made no sense. Why hadn't she told him? Who was the child's father? Why was she alone? Damien walked to the reception desk, unsure exactly what he was looking for. He tried to find out more, but he wasn't family. He wasn't authorized. All he could do was wait. Sitting there forced him to revisit everything he had left behind. He remembered their last fight. The slammed door. The weeks-long silences. He remembered how she used to look at him, as if pleading for his presence, while he, always too busy, believed that providing comfort was enough. He never understood that she wanted something money couldn't buy. Time. Truth. Complete love. And now she was having a baby who could be anyone's, or who could be his. The possibility hit him like a physical punch. Time seemed to stretch, every second dragging. His chest tightened, his stomach churned, and for the first time in a long time, he felt real fear. Fear of having lost something he didn't even know existed. When the clock approached 2 hours, he stood up, walked to the maternity ward doors, and just stood there, watching. Hoping someone would come out, that she would ask for him, that fate would take pity and give him a chance to fix what was broken. But she didn't call. No nurse sought him out. No news reached him. She truly didn't want him there, and yet he couldn't leave. Something in that gaze, in the pain she held so tightly, in that rejection loaded with resentment, wouldn't let him. There was more there than just a birth. There was an interrupted story begging, or perhaps screaming, for a beginning, or at least an answer. And it was then, leaning against that cold hospital wall, that Damien knew. He needed to know the truth. Why do you think Sienna chose to have the baby alone without telling Damien? Was it pride, fear, or a protective instinct? Share your opinion below. New to the channel? Don't miss the climax. Hit subscribe and like to follow this intense journey. The wall of silence, an unyielding heart. Sienna was discharged 2 days after the birth, alone, just as she had arrived, with a baby in her arms and a storm in her chest. Since leaving the delivery room, she hadn't allowed anyone to mention Damien's name near her. Not the nurses, not the social workers, not the curious glances that recognized the man in the suit who had spent hours in the halls, waiting for a chance to see her. She knew he was there. She could feel him, like a strange heat penetrating the walls, like an old perfume suddenly returning to memory. But she wouldn't give in. Not now. Not after everything. The birth had been difficult, but bearable. What was truly unbearable was that presence, that figure who was once everything, and who now was just a reminder of the abandonment, the silence, the absence that she endured silently. Sienna hadn't forgotten the days she cried in the bathroom, trying not to make noise, while he answered late-night emails, justifying his absence with empty words like, "I'm doing this for us." She hadn't forgotten the birthdays he missed, the solitary dinners, the glances that failed to meet until they no longer recognized each other. And now he showed up here, offering help, as if he still had some claim over her pain. She didn't want help. She wanted respect. She wanted distance. But Damien hadn't gotten the message. 2 days later, as she slowly walked toward the hospital exit with the baby in her arms, he emerged from the opposite side of the corridor, holding a bouquet of white flowers. His gaze searched for something, perhaps redemption, or maybe just a starting point for conversation. "Sienna," he said softly, as if afraid to startle her. "Are you okay?" She paused for a moment, held her breath, and answered without looking at him. "I don't need you." He swallowed hard. The flowers trembled in his hand. I wanted to know how you and the baby are. I was worried." "Worry doesn't fix anything, Damien, nor does it turn back time." "I know it doesn't, but I'm here now. I can help. Anything you need." She laughed, a short, ironic laugh. "It's funny. When I needed you most, you weren't there." She took 2 steps forward. He followed her, hesitatingly. "Sienna, listen. I know we made many mistakes, that I got lost. But if this baby is—" She cut him off dryly. "It's none of your business. No part of this is your business anymore." There was an uncomfortable silence, the kind of silence that says more than any words. The baby fussed softly in her arms. And for a brief second, Damien's eyes went to the little face wrapped in a blue blanket. That small being seemed so fragile, so distant from him, so close to something he didn't know he desired. "You look tired," he said, in a last effort to approach. "Let me at least call a car for you, or take you to—" "Enough, Damien. Go live your life. You already did what you had to do with me. Now leave me alone." This time, she walked away without looking back. He stood there, frozen on the hospital sidewalk, the flowers still in his hand. He watched the rideshare car she had called approach. He saw the door close, the window roll up. He saw her eyes fixed forward, as if he didn't exist. And finally, he watched the car disappear into traffic like a dot dissolving on the horizon, along with any certainty he still had about his own past. The desperate search. Truth at any cost. In the following days, Damien tried again. Messages, calls, emails that went unanswered. Flowers delivered to her old address. Handwritten letters he didn't know if she received. All ignored. All rejected. Every door he tried to open, she locked tighter. But what he didn't know, what he didn't even suspect, was that behind that resistance, there was something she fought to keep secret. It wasn't just anger. It was fear. Fear of trusting again. Fear of giving in. Fear of being left alone once more with a shattered heart. And it was this fear that, every night, made Sienna look at the baby sleeping beside her with tears in her eyes. Because no matter how much she denied it, there was a question she couldn't silence. What if he is the father? Damien carried that moment with him day after day, like a wound that stubbornly wouldn't heal. He tried to focus on work, but barely read the proposals his team left on his desk. He tried to answer emails, but his mind wandered. He tried to sleep, but the memories returned in a cruel loop. Her sweaty, fragile face on that gurney, the muffled cry of the baby in the distance, and the way she looked at him, not with hatred, but with absence, as if he were just a stranger, an uncomfortable memory. And that hurt, more than he could admit. Deep down, Damien knew something inside him was breaking, because for the first time, he wasn't in control. He couldn't buy back the lost time. He couldn't demand explanations. All he had was a void, and questions that hammered endlessly. Why was she alone? Whose child is that? And above all, why did it matter so much to him now? It was easy to blame curiosity, to tell himself he just wanted to understand. But every time he remembered her arms cradling that baby with such protection, something deeper, more primitive, a paternal instinct he had never recognized before, was born inside him. It was then he decided to go beyond the pain and the doubt. He decided to find out. He started with social media. He scoured everything he could find. Old photos, archived posts, comments from mutual friends. He realized that in recent months, Sienna had almost completely disappeared from the virtual world. The last entry was a solitary image of a sunset with a short caption, "Learning to be reborn from one's own end." Then he went to the building where they used to live. He talked to the former doorman, who still remembered him sympathetically. He discovered Sienna moved out a few months after the divorce. No forwarding address, no contact information, but he didn't stop. He talked to an old colleague of hers from photography school, claiming he wanted to organize a surprise reconciliation. A half-truth, or perhaps a desire that was beginning to form inside him, without him fully admitting it. The colleague hesitated, but eventually let slip that Sienna was living in a small rented apartment in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago. And so, on a random night, Damien started watching from a distance. In his car with the headlights off, he saw the living room light on. He saw Sienna appear in the window, rocking the baby. He saw her silhouette moving around the house, always with soft, tired steps. He saw, for the first time, that tiny being in her arms. Even from afar, it was impossible not to feel it. His heart raced. Was there a resemblance? Or was it just his desire projecting what he wanted to see? For a few seconds he thought about knocking on the door, to tell her he was there, that he wouldn't leave until he had answers. But something made him retreat. Maybe respect, maybe shame. Maybe the late realization that for a long time he had also been absent, even when they were married. He returned home, but couldn't shake the restlessness. He spent the entire week trying to convince himself that he needed to leave her alone. but her memory became obsessive. It was as if every gesture, every smile she shared with the baby echoed inside him, saying, "You are losing something you never should have let go." And in this turmoil of emotions, Damien made an extreme decision. Without warning, without asking. He contacted a clinical testing lab. An acquaintance owed him an old favor, access to confidential data. Something he knew was wrong, but justified his desperation. He managed to get the child's full name, Liam Costa Sterling. The second surname was his. Damien felt the ground disappear. His knees gave way. It was as if the world around him lost its color. He didn't know if it was anger, relief, or hope that exploded in his chest. He only knew that this changed everything. He was a father. Or at least there was a very real chance he was. But what he didn't yet know was that digging into open wounds comes at a cost. And that sometimes, seeking the truth means being willing to face your own broken reflection. Do you think Damien was wrong to access confidential information to find the truth? Or was he justified by his desperate need to know if he was a father? Comment below. The story will continue with the second part, focusing on the confrontation, the first touch with the baby, and the slow, painful process of rebuilding trust and love, keeping the original length and emotional depth. The broken confession. Trust is not genetic. The truth, as it almost always does in real life, arrived silently, raw, disconcerting, and without asking permission. It had been only a few days since that first encounter with Liam. Damien still felt the baby's touch in his arms, the slight warmth of his skin, the soft sound of his sleeping breath. He carried his scent etched in his memory, as if his soul had been marked. But there was something he needed to do before trying again. He needed to be honest, not with her, not yet. First, with himself. Since suspecting the baby might be his, Damien couldn't cope with the doubt. It was a kind of uncertainty that couldn't be resolved by waiting. And so, weeks before Sienna allowed him to see her, he made a difficult decision: to do a DNA test. He obtained it through means he avoided seeing as wrong. A contact inside the hospital, a vestige of influence he still carried, a thread of conscience that told him he might be invading a space that didn't belong to him. But it was muffled by a pulsing question. What if he is my son? The result arrived on a gray Tuesday. He opened the envelope with trembling hands. He read it once. 99.97% compatibility. Biological father confirmed. That afternoon, he didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just sat on his apartment balcony, looking at the sky, trying to process the weight and the blessing of that truth. Liam was his, and now he had to tell her. He couldn't hide it anymore. When Sienna opened the door that morning, she was surprised by his look. He was the same man as always, suited, discreet, firm eyes. But there was something more there, a resigned exhaustion, like someone who knows he's about to lose everything if he says a single wrong word, and yet chooses to speak. "Can we talk?" he asked straightforwardly. She hesitated, but made space for him to enter. The apartment was silent. Liam was asleep. The curtains gently filtered the light. It was the perfect setting for the coming storm. They sat at the kitchen table. She expected an apology, maybe another attempt at closeness. What she didn't expect was the confession. "Sienna, I need to tell you something." She crossed her arms, defensive. "I took a test. Before you let me see Liam, I found a way to collect genetic material from him, without you knowing." She didn't react immediately. Her gaze remained fixed, hard, but something in her shoulders began to tense. "Continue," she said through clenched teeth. Damien took a deep breath, as if he had to cross an invisible bridge with every word. The result came back, and he is mine. Biologically and officially, Liam is my son. Silence. One of those silences that chill the air. Sienna paled. Her eyes, previously controlled, became watery. But not from pure emotion. It was a kind of pain difficult to name. She stood up slowly, like someone trying to stay firm in a room that was spinning. You invaded my son's space," she whispered. "My private space, without my consent, without asking me, without respecting me." "I know," he said, his voice husky. "I know it was wrong, but I needed to know. It was destroying me inside. I needed the truth." She laughed, a thin, shaky, acidic laugh. The truth, Damien, is that you never waited for me. You never trusted me. Not when we were married, not now. You only know how to act above me, through the back channels. Did you really think a printed result would give you any right in here? She pointed to her chest, to her heart. "This son is yours biologically, but he is mine in everything that matters. I was the one who spent sleepless nights. I was the one who cried from exhaustion. I was the one who held him, even when afraid of breaking down." "I know that," he murmured, cautiously standing up. "And I'm not here to take anything from you. I just wanted you to know that now I know. And even if you hate me for what I did, I won't give up. Because loving a child is not just genetics. It's a choice. And that choice, Sienna, I've already made." She didn't answer. She just turned her face away, trying to hide the tear that finally escaped. She was torn between the relief of the truth being revealed and the hurt of being run over by it. Inside her, something was giving way. Something was breaking. But it wasn't clear if it was the start of reconstruction or just another collapse. Damien finally walked to the door. He paused for a moment with his hand on the knob. "If you want me to leave for good, say it. But if there is a small part inside you that thinks that I can be a good father, then let me try." And without waiting for an answer, he left. Sienna stood there motionless. The silence of the house seemed louder than ever. Liam started to fuss in the crib. She walked to him, picked him up, and allowed herself to bury her face in his scent of milk and powder. Deep down, she knew. That truth changed everything. But what would she do with it? That was still a secret even to herself. Sienna is right about Damien's control issues. Do you believe his actions, the test showing up, are motivated by love for the child, or his ego and desire for control? What would you do in her place? Let us know in the comments. The eruption of years. The cleansing fire, the latent tension exploded. 2 days passed since Damien revealed the DNA test. Sienna ignored him. She didn't reply to messages. She didn't answer calls. She needed to process, or at least try to, the turmoil that confession had unleashed. But there was something inside her that simmered. Something that wouldn't pass. The truth exposed without her consent. The violated boundaries. The weight of everything that stood between them. And above all, the pain of realizing that, even after everything, her heart still reacted to his presence. That's why she sent a short message that afternoon. "Come now." Damien arrived in less than half an hour, his face tense, prepared for anything. When she opened the door, his eyes sought hers as if already begging forgiveness. But Sienna didn't want apologies. She wanted to say everything she had swallowed for years. "Come in and listen, because today you will listen," she said firmly, her eyes already moist. He entered in silence. The apartment felt suffocating, as if the air itself was about to rupture. "How could you have the courage?" she began without preamble. "Did you think you could just invade my son's life without consulting me? A hidden DNA test, Damien, as if I were a threat, a lie. Some random person. I never thought that of you." "I did not think that," he tried. "You did, yes!" she shouted, her voice thick. You did from the moment you decided to act behind my back, just as you always did. You always chose to decide alone. You always felt entitled to walk over my wishes because you thought you knew best. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I did the test because I was going crazy, Sienna. You wouldn't give me answers. You wouldn't let me in, and I needed to know. For him. For me. No. You did it for control. Because you don't know how to handle vulnerability. Because you've always preferred certainty to facing your own feelings. She approached him, her eyes flashing. You didn't do it out of love. You did it out of wounded pride. Damien ran his hands through his hair, visibly affected. Sienna, you're wrong. I did it out of love, yes. I did it out of intuition, out of desperation. Because looking at that baby and not knowing if he was mine was killing me inside. Because I spent 2 years thinking I would never feel anything again. And when I saw you on that gurney, everything came back. Everything. Sienna hesitated for a second, but the pain was still louder. Everything came back? How convenient, right? When I was alone, bleeding, scared, you finally showed up, when it was too late. And you still want me to believe in repentance? No, I want you to believe that I've changed. You haven't changed, she fired back, her voice breaking. You're the same man who left me waiting alone, night after night. The same one who said, I'll be right back, and only showed up the next day. The same one who said, I'm doing this for us, when in truth, you were only doing it for you. The words hit hard, but he didn't back down. I made mistakes. I lost you, and I lost much more than I knew. But you also made mistakes, Sienna. You also kept silent. You also pushed me away. You also looked at me for weeks as if I were a stranger and never told me what you felt. She lowered her head. Silence. Tears began to fall, one by one, uncontrollably, as if that confrontation had finally breached the dam. I tried to forget you, she whispered, her voice choked. I swear to God, I tried. I did everything. I changed houses, routines, scents, but every time Liam looked at me, I saw you. He took a cautious step forward. And now, what do you see when you look at me? She lifted her eyes. The armor fell. For the first time in a long time, Sienna showed not just pain, but love. I see the man who broke me, and the man I still love. Damien was silent. That pierced him like a blade and gave him relief at the same time. She continued, I never stopped loving you. That's what hurts me most. Because loving you is like touching a wound that never closes. It's wanting to forgive you and not being able to trust. He slowly reached out his hand, as if trying to grasp not her body, but her soul. I don't want you to forgive me today, or to trust me now. I just want you to let me stay, even on the outside, even waiting. Because I'm going to be here, Sienna. Even if you send me away every day, I will continue. She took a deep breath. There was still fire between them. There was still a spark. But there were also ashes. And rebuilding from scratch would require much more than pretty words. She turned to wipe her eyes, stopping at Liam's bedroom door. The baby had woken up. His soft cry filled the room. Without looking back, she said, If you really want to stay, start now. And she entered the room, leaving the door ajar. Damien took a deep breath and stepped forward. Do you think Sienna's admission of still loving him, right after accusing him of controlling her, is a sign of weakness or her greatest strength and honesty? Share your insights. The slow reconstruction. Love is presence. The reconstruction didn't start with declarations, nor with more kisses, nor with pretty words. It started with the sound of the microwave heating bottles in the middle of the night, with a diaper changed at 4 a.m, with a comforting arm extended when the crying came without explanation, with a silence shared on the sofa, while both watched Liam sleep, exhausted but present. Damien stayed, not in the romantic sense. He stayed on the sofa every night, respecting her boundaries. He didn't try to take another step forward. But every day, he gave small signs that he was there for something bigger than himself. "Go rest. I'll take him," he would say, holding the baby with more confidence each day. "Want me to do the dishes? I already set up the bassinet. I separated the clothes for daycare." Simple phrases, silent acts, that didn't ask for recognition but showed constancy. Sienna watched. At first, she resisted. She had the habit of getting ahead of him, saying, "I'll do it." Or, "I don't need it, I'll manage." It was the reflex of someone who learned to survive alone. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, she began to give in. She accepted when he offered coffee. She no longer minded when he went out with Liam in his arms for a walk around the block. She allowed him to keep the baby while she took a long shower, the first in months without hurry or guilt. It was strange to see that man in the suit, once so cold and absent, now humming lullabies out of tune, changing diapers without complaint, sporting dark circles, and sleeping with a shirt stained with milk. The tycoon became a father, and that moved her. Sometimes, at night, she would lie next to the bassinet and watch the two of them sleeping. Damien curled up on the sofa, and Liam in the crib beside her. It was like watching a scene that she wasn't sure was real or a dream that had finally returned. But the fear was still there, the fear of everything being temporary, of him getting tired, of him disappearing again. And more than anything, the fear of allowing a new beginning only to experience another fall. One afternoon, while they were doing the dishes together, she spoke without looking. "You know all this could be an act, right?" He paused for a second. "I don't know," he replied, rinsing a plate. "And that's why I'm here, to prove to you that it's not. But I still don't trust you. I know that too, and that's okay." She looked at him for the first time. "Why don't you pressure me?" Damien shrugged, drying his hands on the dish towel. "Because I learned that real love doesn't shout. It waits." That touched her deeper than he could know. Sienna just nodded. She didn't respond. But inside her, the wall was starting to crack. In the days that followed, living together became routine. A new routine of quiet complicity. Shared smiles during diaper changes, hands that met by chance over the stove, unexpected laughter when Liam made funny faces. One afternoon, while Damien was bathing the baby, Sienna overheard him humming a song he used to sing to her in the early days of their marriage. She leaned against the bathroom door and closed her eyes, letting the memories emerge unchecked. "You remember that song?" she asked, surprised. "I remember. It's impossible to forget what cradles a heart." The sentence hung in the air. Heavy. Beautiful. That night, she prepared an extra bed for him, in the guest room. For the first time, he wouldn't have to sleep on the sofa. It was a simple gesture, but for them, it was charged with meaning. She hadn't said stay yet, but she no longer said go. One morning, during a bad colic spell, the two of them took turns holding and comforting the baby. Seeing Sienna almost collapse from exhaustion, he embraced her from behind, just with his arms, just with tenderness. "Go rest. I'll take him." She allowed herself to lean on his chest for a few seconds. Just silence, just breathing, just time saying that perhaps it was possible to start over. In the following days, he began attending doctor appointments, organizing the daycare paperwork, buying books on conscious parenting without fanfare, without seeking forgiveness. And this was perhaps the most beautiful gesture of all, because Sienna began to see the man behind the businessman. The one who failed, yes, but now owned up to his mistakes. The one who was learning. The one who stayed even when nothing was guaranteed. And one day, seeing him on the living room floor in pajamas, playing with Liam and laughing as if the world had stopped there, Sienna felt that the wall had finally begun to crumble. But she still needed something more, something that neither diapers, nor flowers, nor constancy could offer. something he would still have to discover. The right beginning, a new version of us, love. When it returns is never the same. It comes back different, slower, more attentive, without the illusions that blinded before, without the promises thrown to the wind. It returns with scars, with respect for what was hurt, with the humility of someone who knows that to love again, one must learn to love better. And that's how Sienna and Damien began. Or rather, began again. There was no immediate yes, no formal proposal. It was weeks of subtle rapprochement, with stumbles, uncomfortable silences, and conversations interrupted by baby cries. Emotional relapses surfaced from time to time. Sometimes she looked at him with suspicion. Sometimes he was afraid of repeating the same mistakes. But now, something was different. They talked. They didn't sweep things under the rug. They didn't pretend. If something hurt, they said it. If something stung, they put it on the table. There was a raw frankness that strangely brought them closer than any old vow of love. One night, as Sienna dried the dishes and Damien rocked Liam in his arms, he spoke candidly. "I don't want to go back." She looked at him, surprised. "No?" "No," he repeated, his eyes firm. "I don't want to go back to what we were. That didn't work. It was beautiful on the outside and empty on the inside. We smiled for the photo and cried in the bedroom. I want to start in a different way, from scratch, with another version of us." Sienna leaned against the sink, her eyes welling up without warning. "You talk as if you have everything resolved inside you." "I don't. But I'm willing to learn, to listen, to truly change. And not out of obligation, but because today, I understand the value of losing someone you love." She took a deep breath. "What if I say I'm still afraid? We'll walk with fear then, together." He slowly approached her, still holding Liam. The baby slept soundly, as if he knew that there, between those two broken hearts, something was being rebuilt. "I don't want you to forgive me because I asked. I want you to see me," Damien said. "And if one day you think it's worth trying again, tell me. But tell me with honesty, even if it's months or years from now." She smiled, a small, tired but sincere smile. "What if I say now?" He paused. "Now? It's because maybe I've already seen you." Damien smiled, and for the first time in a long time, that smile didn't carry guilt. It carried peace. "Then we'll start again," he said, moving his face closer to hers. "But we'll start right. No pretense, no demands, no impossible promises. With our feet on the ground and our hearts open," she completed, and then they kissed. This time, with calm, with sweetness, with the intimacy of those who already know each other deep inside. There was no rush, no euphoria. It was a kiss from those who knew the value of the journey traveled to get there, and who didn't want to get lost midway again. That night they slept together. Liam between them as a bridge and a purpose. He still woke up crying at 2 a.m. And this time, it was Damien who got up. He gave him a bottle, caressed him, and sang a soft song until the baby fell asleep again. When he returned to bed, Sienna was waiting for him with an extra pillow and a silence that said everything. They were finally 3. The next day, he didn't go to work. He stayed. He made breakfast. He read to his son. He watched a random movie with Sienna, and for the first time in a long time, the house felt like a home. Later, as she folded the baby's clothes and he organized the diaper drawer, Damien paused and watched her for a few seconds. "I'll still make mistakes," he said, "but I want to make them by your side. I want to learn with you, with him, with everything this life forced me to see." She slowly turned. "I'll make mistakes too, and I'll probably freak out during the next few night feedings." Then we'll freak out together. Then we'll hug and continue." She nodded, her eyes welling up once more. "What if everything falls apart again?" Damien smiled, approached her, and kissed her forehead. "We'll build it again, the right way, with what remains of the most truthful part of us." She leaned her head on his shoulder, with Liam now sleeping in the sling against her chest. The baby was serene, as if listening to every word. There, in that small room, 3 hearts beat in the same rhythm. With scars, yes, but also with hope. And sometimes, that's all love needed to start over. In the end, they didn't go back to what they were. Because real love is not about repeating the past, but choosing to build a new path, with the scars visible and the heart willing to stay. Because perhaps mature love is not about perfection, it's about presence. And you? Have you had the courage to start over from scratch with someone who broke your heart? If this story touched you in any way, leave your like. Subscribe to the channel and tell us, where are you listening to this message from? Your support is what allows us to continue bringing real, emotional stories that speak directly to the heart. Tôi vô cùng xin lỗi, bạn hoàn toàn đúng. Trong phần trả lời trước, tôi đã viết phần kết mở bằng tiếng Việt, trong khi yêu cầu ban đầu của bạn là viết lại toàn bộ câu chuyện sang tiếng Anh. Đây là một sai sót lớn. The open ending, the silence of the shared space. What do you think will be the toughest challenge for Damien and Sienna now? Comment below. This follows the slow reconstruction segment, after Damien has stayed on the sofa for 2 months, with no further kisses, but with presence and understanding. Over those 2 months, their coexistence had become a dance of compromises and tentative trust. Damien hadn't tried to advance an inch, but he had filled the apartment with his unspoken presence. The suited hedge fund executive was now a man in a milk-stained t-shirt, waking up at 3 a.m. to mix formula. He had learned to swaddle, soothe, and sing off-key lullabies. Sienna watched it all. At times, she still caught her gaze lingering on him, not with suspicion, but with a sense of bewilderment. Who was this man? Was he still the one who abandoned her, or a version forged by Liam's birth and his own loneliness? One Friday afternoon, Sienna was folding Liam's clothes in the living room. Damien returned from a critical meeting, still in his expensive suit, but holding a bag of baby toys and a bunch of wild daisies, her favorite flower from long ago. He took off his jacket, placed it on the sofa, and came to stand beside her. "You're finally home," she said, her voice stripped of sharpness, but still maintaining an invisible distance. Liam just fell asleep. Damien looked at her, then at his jacket. He wouldn't be sleeping on the sofa tonight. She had set up a simple air mattress in the living room weeks ago, a small step up from the couch. "Did you get the email?" he asked, his voice low. "I signed the papers. I transferred 51% of my share of the old apartment to you, and I also started a separate education fund for Liam." Sienna stopped folding, looking up at him. This was physical proof of his promise. This was the language he always used. Money, ownership. But this time, it was used to relinquish power, not to assert it. "Damien," she said, "you didn't have to do that." "I did," he replied, his tone steady. "I needed to show you that I'm not trying to buy you back, but to respect you. Proof of trust isn't in my words anymore, Sienna. It's in my ability to let go of control." She stood up. They faced each other, only a few steps apart, a distance that took 2 years to create and 2 months to bridge. "There's still one thing," she whispered, her eyes full of unanswered questions. "You've spent 2 months here. You sleep on the floor. You've changed diapers without complaint. You've fought to get the truth, and you've proven your persistence. But why, Damien? Why didn't you go back to your old life? Why didn't you find another woman, a simpler one? What are you most afraid of?" Her question pierced the shell he had built. He was ready for any accusation, but not this exploration. He took a step back, his gaze faltering. I'm not sure, he stammered, his polished composure cracking for the first time since their reunion. Sienna took a step forward. She had abandoned the need for cruel words. She only wanted the raw truth. Are you afraid of being alone? Or are you afraid that if you return to your old life, you'll realize it holds no value anymore? Damien didn't answer. He just looked into the darkness reflected in her eyes, as if staring into his own abyss. The silence stretched, suffocating. Sienna turned, walking toward Liam's bedroom. She paused at the threshold. Tonight, she said, her voice surprisingly soft. I cleared the living room. You don't need to sleep on the air mattress anymore. She glanced at his expensive jacket on the sofa. The couch is free. You can be more comfortable there. She didn't invite him into her bedroom. She didn't ask him to leave. She simply created a minor alteration in their established state. Good night, Damien, she said, and walked into the room, gently closing the door. He stood there, in the dimly lit living room, looking at his jacket on the sofa, a symbol of a world he had abandoned, and the deflated air mattress on the floor. He could sleep on the soft sofa. He could continue to sleep on the floor, demonstrating his quiet commitment. But he knew this decision wasn't just about comfort. It was an open door she had left for him. He picked up his jacket. Where will he sleep tonight? His choice will determine whether he is seeking redemption or a true rebirth. Will Damien sleep on the old air mattress to continue showing humility, or sleep on the couch to accept the small step forward Sienna offered him? And most importantly, what do you think is the answer to Sienna's question? Is he afraid of loneliness, or afraid that his old life has lost its meaning? This is the open ending of the story. Leave your comments with your desired outcome, and don't forget to share this intense journey. explosive hook. The biggest mistake of my life. Hello, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Real Stories That Transform Lives. Before we dive into Amelia's heartbreaking yet incredibly inspiring journey, please do me a huge favor. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any story. Today, I bring you a tale that proves how cruelty can become the catalyst for greatness. Imagine waking up one day, and the person who swore eternal love to you says, without a shred of emotion, that you were the biggest mistake of his life. It wasn't a shout of rage, but a cold judgment. A professional verdict pronounced in a luxury penthouse in the heart of New York City. That's where our story begins. The cold verdict. Amelia's invisible prison. The old grandfather clock in the foyer chimed 9 o'clock. Amelia Thorne, 32, sat alone at the majestic dining table, staring at the untouched dinner she had prepared hours ago. The candles had burned halfway down, their flames dancing languidly in the oppressive silence. She had set the table with their best china, delicate plates with gold rims that had been a wedding gift 3 years ago. Fresh flowers rested in a crystal vase, but their sweet fragrance failed to mask the bitterness that flooded the atmosphere. Finally, Marcus Sterling walked through the front door of their dream penthouse, his executive briefcase in one hand and his phone glued to his ear in the other. He barely spared Amelia a glance as he strode past her toward his office. She watched him disappear down the hall, feeling invisible once more. This had become their routine. She waited, she hoped, and eventually ate alone while he worked late into the night. Amelia slowly rose, her heart heavy with the umpteenth disappointment. She walked to the office and knocked gently before opening the door. Marcus sat behind his mahogany desk, frantically typing on his laptop. The blue light from the screen reflected on his face, making him seem even more distant than usual. "Marcus, we need to talk," Amelia said softly, struggling to maintain her composure. He didn't look up from his work. "Can't it wait? I'm closing a huge deal tomorrow morning." "No, it cannot wait," Amelia countered, her voice gaining firmness. "It's waited long enough. We have waited long enough." Marcus sighed with obvious irritation and finally lifted his eyes to meet hers. "What is it, Amelia? What is so urgent that it can't wait until tomorrow?" Amelia felt her chest tighten. She had rehearsed this conversation 100 times in her mind, but now that the moment arrived, the words caught in her throat. She took a deep breath and moved closer to his desk. "When did we stop being a couple?" she asked. "When did you stop seeing me as your wife and start treating me like just another piece of furniture in this apartment?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. His expression remained cold and unreadable. "Amelia, I work hard to maintain this lifestyle for us. You live in a beautiful home. You have everything you could want. What more do you expect from me?" "I expect you to be present in our marriage," Amelia said, her voice cracking slightly. "I don't want expensive things or fancy dinners. I want my husband to come home and talk to me. I want to feel like I matter to you." Marcus rubbed his temples, as if she were causing him a headache. "You're exaggerating. This is how marriages work when you're building an empire. Didn't you know what you were getting into marrying me?" "No." Amelia shook her head, tears starting to well up. "I married a man who loved me, who made me feel special. The man I fell in love with used to bring me flowers for no reason. He laughed with me, and we made plans for our future together. Where did that man go?" Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the wooden floor. He clenched his jaw, and for the first time in months, he looked directly at her, with something more than indifference. But what she saw in his eyes was not love or concern. It was frustration and something far colder. "You want to know the truth?" Marcus said, his voice low and harsh. "Fine. The truth is, marrying you was a mistake. You were the biggest mistake of my life." The words hit Amelia like a physical blow. She felt the air leave her lungs as she stared at him in shock. The room seemed to spin, and she clutched the edge of the desk to steady herself. "What did you just say?" she whispered, hoping she had misheard. "You heard me," Marcus continued, his tone unwavering. "I got carried away by romance and the idea of having a wife, but the reality is you hold me back. You demand attention and time that I don't have. You are a liability I can no longer afford." Amelia felt warm tears run down her face, but she refused to look away. She wanted him to see the pain he was causing, to understand the weight of the words he had just uttered. But Marcus's expression remained unreadable, as cold and distant as ever. "If you truly feel that way," Amelia said, her voice trembling but determined, "then I'm going to make it easy for you. I'm leaving." She turned and walked out of the office, her legs shaking. Behind her, she heard Marcus call her name once, but she didn't stop. She went straight to their bedroom and pulled a suitcase from the closet. Her hands trembled as she threw clothes inside, not caring what she grabbed or how she folded it. Amelia looked around the room, which once felt like a sanctuary. The luxurious silk bedding, the closet full of designer clothes, the view of the city skyline through the picture windows. None of it mattered anymore. This beautiful prison had ceased to be a home the moment Marcus stopped loving her. If he ever truly did. She zipped the suitcase and took a last look at the framed photo on her bedside table. It was from their wedding. They both looked so happy, so hopeful for the future. Amelia took the frame and looked at the image of her younger self, a woman who had no idea what was coming. She placed it face down on the table and walked out of the room. Marcus stood in the hallway when she appeared with her suitcase. For a moment, neither spoke. Amelia saw something flicker across his face, perhaps regret or surprise, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "Amelia, where will you go?" he asked, his voice lacking true concern. "Anywhere but here," she replied simply. "A place where I am not a mistake." She walked past him toward the front door, her head held high despite the tears still streaming down her cheeks. As she reached the knob, Marcus spoke again. "You'll regret this. You're giving up everything." Amelia stopped and turned to face him one last time. "No, Marcus. I am finally choosing myself. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner." She opened the door and walked out into the hall, pulling her suitcase behind her. The sound of the door closing echoed in the empty hallway. Amelia stood there for a moment, taking deep breaths and trying to process what had just happened. Her entire life had changed in the span of a single conversation. She pulled out her phone and called the only person she knew would answer at that hour. Sophia, her best friend from college. "Amelia, is everything okay?" Sophia asked, worry evident in her voice. "No," Amelia admitted, her voice breaking. "Nothing is okay. Can I stay with you tonight? I just left Marcus." "Of course you can," Sophia said immediately. "Come right now. I'll put the kettle on." Amelia took the elevator to the lobby and stepped out into the cool night air. The city was still alive with people and traffic, completely oblivious to the personal earthquake that had just shaken her world. She flagged a taxi and gave the driver Sophia's address across town. As the car pulled away from the imposing glass and steel building, Amelia looked back one last time. Somewhere in that penthouse, Marcus was probably already back at his desk, focused on his business and his empire. The realization that he would barely miss her presence hurt more than anything else. But as the taxi merged into traffic and the building disappeared from view, Amelia felt something unexpected stir in her chest alongside the pain. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope. For the first time in years, she had chosen herself. She had abandoned a life that was slowly killing her spirit. The road ahead was uncertain and terrifying, but it was hers to walk. Amelia wiped the tears from her cheeks and watched the city lights flash by. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or how she would rebuild her life from this moment. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was not a mistake. She never had been. And she would prove it to herself, even if Marcus never came to understand what he had lost. Have you ever had to let go of something you loved in order to save yourself? Tell us your experience in the comments. If this story touches your soul, give this video a thumbs up. The architect of her own resurrection. Amelia woke up on Sophia's sofa, with sunlight streaming through the curtains. For a brief moment, she forgot where she was and why. Then, reality crashed down on her like a wave. She sat up slowly, her body aching from a night of restless sleep. Sophia appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee, her expression full of sympathy and concern. "Good morning," Sophia said softly, handing her one of the mugs. "How are you feeling?" "Like my whole life just fell apart." Sophia sat beside her and put a comforting arm around her shoulders. "I know it feels that way right now, but I promise you, this is not the end. This is actually the beginning of something much better." Amelia wanted to believe her friend, but the pain was still too raw. She spent the next few days in a fog, barely eating or talking. Sophia gave her space while simultaneously ensuring she was never truly alone. On the 4th day, Sophia sat across from Amelia at the kitchen table, a determined look on her face. "Enough grieving," Sophia announced firmly. "I love you, and I've let you process this heartbreak, but now it's time to start moving forward. You are talented, brilliant, and capable. Marcus may not have seen your worth, but the rest of the world will." Amelia looked at her friend with weary eyes. "What am I supposed to do? I gave up everything. I don't have a job or a place to live." "Nonsense. You have your skills," Sophia reminded her. "You are an incredible interior designer. Before you married Marcus, you were making a name for yourself. Remember all those projects you worked on? The boutique hotel renovation? The restaurant redesign that won that award?" Amelia had almost forgotten her career. She had given it up when Marcus convinced her he wanted a wife focused on their home and social life. At the time, it had felt romantic, like he wanted to take care of her. Now, she realized it was just another way to control her and make her dependent on him. "I've been out of the industry for 3 years," Amelia said quietly. "No one will remember me." "I'll remind them," Sophia said with a smile. "I still have contacts from my marketing days. Let me make some calls. I bet we can get you some freelance work to start." Over the next few weeks, Amelia slowly began to regain her confidence. Sophia kept her word and connected her with several small projects. Amelia threw herself into the work, grateful for the distraction and the opportunity to use her creative skills again. She rented a small studio apartment in a modest neighborhood in Greenwich Village. Nothing like the luxurious penthouse she had shared with Marcus, but it felt more like a home than that place ever did. Her first big break came when she was hired to redesign a popular coffee shop in the art district. The owner, a woman named Patricia, gave Amelia complete creative freedom. Amelia poured her heart into the project, selecting warm colors, comfortable furniture, and unique lighting fixtures that created a cozy atmosphere. When the redesign was complete, the coffee shop became an instant success. Customers loved the new space, and photos of the interior began popping up on social media. Patricia was thrilled with the results and recommended Amelia to other business owners in the area. Soon, Amelia had more work than she could handle. She was designing boutiques, restaurants, office spaces, and even a small art gallery. Each project allowed her to express herself in ways she never could during her marriage. She was no longer invisible or insignificant. Her work spoke for itself, and people valued her vision. 6 months after leaving Marcus, Amelia attended a networking event for design professionals and potential clients. She wore a simple navy dress and had pulled her hair back into an elegant bun. As she walked through the gallery space where the event was held, she felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. She was proud of what she had accomplished on her own. She was examining a modern sculpture when a deep voice spoke from behind her. "An interesting piece, isn't it? I can't decide if I love it or hate it." Amelia turned and found herself looking at a tall man with kind brown eyes and an easy smile. He wore a casual blazer over a button-down shirt, and there was an accessible quality about him that immediately put her at ease. "I think that's the point of modern art," Amelia replied with a smile. "It's supposed to make you feel something, even if that something is confusion." The man laughed warmly. "That's a good point. I'm Adrian Hayes, by the way. I'm an architect." Amelia Vargas, interior designer. They shook hands, and Amelia felt a small spark of connection. Adrian had a refreshing directness. For the next hour, they talked about design, philosophy, favorite projects, and their shared love for creating beautiful spaces. Adrian listened intently when Amelia spoke, asking thoughtful questions and genuinely engaging with her ideas. It was such a stark contrast to the conversations she used to have with Marcus, where she always felt like she was interrupting something more important. "I've actually seen some of your recent work," Adrian admitted. "The coffee shop in Greenwich Village? That was you, right? I was so impressed with how you transformed that space. It feels warm and inviting, while still being modern." Amelia felt her cheeks flush with pride. "Thank you. That project was special to me." "Would you be interested in collaborating on something?" Adrian asked. "I'm working on a residential development, and we're looking for an interior designer to handle the model units. I think your aesthetic would be perfect." Amelia's heart quickened with excitement. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she had been waiting for. "I would love to discuss it further." They exchanged contact information, and Adrian promised to send her the project details. As the evening drew to a close, Amelia felt lighter than she had in months. She had made a genuine connection with someone who respected her work and saw her as an equal professional. CTAs. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the dramatic confrontation. Like and share this video. The confrontation. The echo of a mistake. Over the next few weeks, Amelia and Adrian worked closely together on the residential project. They met regularly to discuss design concepts, review floor plans, and coordinate their visions for the spaces. Amelia found herself eagerly looking forward to their meetings. Adrian was collaborative and creative. He was always open to her suggestions and willing to adapt his architectural plans to accommodate her interior designs. But it was more than just professional respect. Adrian made her laugh. He brought her coffee during long planning sessions and remembered small details she mentioned in passing. When Amelia mentioned a vintage furniture store she loved, he surprised her by taking her there one Saturday afternoon to look for pieces for the model units. As they browsed mid-century chairs and antique lamps, Amelia realized she was having fun in a way she hadn't experienced in years. One evening, after a particularly productive work session, Adrian suggested dinner at a nearby restaurant. Amelia hesitated for a moment, wondering if this crossed the line from professional to personal. But then she reminded herself she was allowed to have dinner with a friend and colleague. She was no longer trapped in a marriage where every action was scrutinized. The restaurant was cozy and intimate. Adrian ordered a bottle of wine, and they talked about everything except work. He told her about growing up in a small coastal town, his decision to study architecture, and his dream of designing sustainable housing. Amelia found herself opening up about her own past, carefully editing the painful details of her marriage. "Can I ask you something personal?" Adrian said after their main courses arrived. "You don't have to answer if you're not comfortable." Amelia nodded, curious about what he wanted to know. "You seem like someone who's been through something difficult recently. Adrian observed softly. I don't mean to pry, but I get the sense there's a story behind your incredible comeback to the design world. Amelia took a sip of wine, considering how much to share. There was something about Adrian's genuine concern that made her want to be honest. I was married, she began slowly, to someone who made me feel small and insignificant. He convinced me my career didn't matter and that I should focus on supporting his success. For 3 years, I lost myself trying to be the perfect wife for someone who never truly appreciated me. When he told me I was the biggest mistake of his life, I finally found the courage to leave. Adrian's expression turned serious, and Amelia saw anger flicker in his eyes. He told you that? What kind of person says something so cruel to someone they supposedly loved? Someone who never truly loved me, Amelia replied quietly. It took me a long time to understand that it wasn't my fault. I wasn't the mistake. The mistake was staying with someone who couldn't see my worth. Adrian leaned across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. For the record, I think he was a complete fool. You are talented, brilliant, and amazing at what you do. Anyone who couldn't see that doesn't deserve you. Amelia felt tears prick her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude and relief. For so long, she had internalized Marcus's words and believed she was lacking. But here was someone who saw her clearly and appreciated everything she had to offer. Thank you, she whispered. That means more to me than you know. Do you think Marcus deserved a second chance after seeing Amelia's success, or was it already too late? Leave us your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to share this story with someone who needs a reminder of their own worth. The gala return. You were the mistake, not me. As the weeks turned into months, Amelia and Adrian grew closer. Their professional relationship evolved into a genuine friendship, and then into something that felt like the beginning of a romance. Adrian never pressured her or demanded her time. He simply showed up consistently, proving through his actions that he valued her presence in his life. Meanwhile, Marcus's life followed a very different trajectory. After Amelia left, he convinced himself he was better off without her. He dove deeper into his work, closing deals and expanding his real estate empire. But the penthouse felt emptier than ever. The silence he once valued now felt suffocating. He started seeing Amelia's work appear in design magazines and industry publications. Her name was mentioned in articles about rising stars in interior design. He saw photographs of spaces she had created, each one showcasing her incredible eye for detail and her ability to make environments feel beautiful and welcoming. Something twisted in his chest every time he saw her name. Then, one day, Marcus's partner invited him to tour a new residential development that was generating buzz in the real estate community. Marcus agreed, always interested in seeing what the competition was doing. When they arrived at the property, he was immediately impressed by the thoughtful architecture and quality of construction. "Wait until you see the model units," his partner said enthusiastically. "The interior design is absolutely stunning. It's what's really selling this place." They walked into the first model unit, and Marcus stopped dead in his tracks. He recognized Amelia's work instantly. The color palette, the furniture selection, the way she had layered textures and patterns to create depth and warmth. This was unmistakably her vision. "Who did the interiors?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "A designer named Amelia Vargas," his partner replied. "Apparently she's one of the hottest names in the industry right now. Everyone wants to work with her." Marcus walked through the space in a daze, seeing Amelia's talent on full display. How had he not noticed this about her when they were married? How had he dismissed her skills and made her feel that her career didn't matter? The realization of what he had lost hit him like a freight train. 3 months later, Amelia received an invitation to the annual Design Excellence Awards Gala, one of the industry's most prestigious events. She had been nominated for her work on Adrian's residential development, and she could barely believe it. Sophia helped her choose a stunning emerald green gown that made her feel elegant and confident. Adrian offered to be her date for the night, and Amelia accepted with a warm "ah." As they buffeted at the hotel ballroom, Amelia felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was a huge moment for her career, and she wanted to savor every second. What Amelia didn't know was that Marcus was also at the event. His company was a major sponsor, meaning he had a prominent table near the front of the room. When he walked in and surveyed the crowd, his eyes landed on Amelia almost immediately. She looked absolutely radiant in her green dress, her hair styled in soft waves that framed her face. But what made his stomach clench was the man sitting beside her, clearly attentive and affectionate. Marcus felt a surge of emotions he couldn't quite name: jealousy, regret, anger, longing. He watched as Amelia laughed at something Adrian said. Her entire face lit up with genuine happiness. He had never made her look like that. He tried to concentrate on the awards presentation, but his attention kept drifting back to Amelia. When her category was announced, Marcus found himself holding his breath. The presenter opened the envelope and read the winner's name: Amelia Vargas, for her exceptional interior design work on the Hayes Ribera residential development. The ballroom erupted in applause. Amelia rose, tears in her eyes, clearly shocked and overwhelmed. Adrian stood with her, giving her a congratulatory hug before she headed to the stage. Marcus watched her accept the award, give an eloquent speech, and pose for photographs. She was poised, professional, and utterly captivating. As the night continued, Marcus found himself unable to stay put. He needed to talk to Amelia, to tell her he was wrong about everything. He waited until she walked out of the ballroom, presumably heading to the restroom or to take a break from the crowd. He followed her into the elegant hallway. "Amelia!" he called out. She turned, and the smile immediately vanished from her face when she saw him. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "My company is a sponsor," he explained, taking a few steps closer. "But that doesn't matter. I needed to see you, to talk to you. Congratulations on your award. You deserve it." Amelia crossed her arms defensively over her chest. "Thank you. If that's all you wanted to say, I should get back to my table." "Wait," Marcus said urgently. "Please, just give me a few minutes. I've been trying to figure out how to contact you for months." "Why would you want to contact me?" Amelia asked coldly. "You made it very clear that I was a mistake in your life." Marcus winced as his own words were thrown back at him. "I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong, Amelia. I've spent every day since you left regretting what I said and how I treated you. I didn't appreciate what I had until it was gone." Amelia shook her head in disbelief. "You can't be serious right now. Do you have any idea how much that hurt me? How many nights I cried myself to sleep feeling worthless because of the things you said and did?" "I know," Marcus said, his voice breaking, "and I'll never forgive myself. But I'm asking you to forgive me. I want another chance. I want to prove to you that I can be the husband you deserved all along." Before Amelia could answer, Adrian appeared in the hallway. He immediately assessed the situation, noticing Amelia's uncomfortable body language and Marcus's intense expression. "Amelia, is everything all right?" Adrian asked, positioning himself protectively beside her. Marcus's jaw tightened as he looked at the other man. "This is a private conversation. Not if Amelia doesn't want it to be," Adrian responded calmly. Amelia took a deep breath, looking between the two men. "Adrian, this is Marcus, my ex-husband. Marcus, this is Adrian Hayes. We work together." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "That's none of your business," Amelia said firmly. "You lost the right to ask questions about my personal life when you threw me away like I meant nothing." Marcus stepped forward, desperation clear in his expression. "Amelia, please, I love you. I should have said it more when we were together. I should have shown it every day. But I'm saying it now. I love you, and I can't stand the idea of you being with someone else." Adrian looked at Amelia with concern. "Do you want me to give you some privacy?" Amelia considered it for a moment. Then she shook her head. "No, stay. Marcus needs to hear this, and I want you to be here." She turned to face Marcus directly, her voice firm and strong. "For 3 years, I waited for you to love me the way I deserved. I made excuses for your coldness and your absence. I convinced myself that if I was just more patient, more understanding, more perfect, you would finally see me. But you never did. And when I finally had the courage to ask for what I needed, you told me I was your biggest mistake." Tears were streaming down Amelia's face now, but her voice never faltered. "Do you know what that did to me? Do you have any idea how long it took me to believe that I actually wasn't a mistake? That I was worthy of love, respect, and a partner?" Marcus reached out to touch her arm, but Amelia took a step back. "I'm not finished. You don't get to show up here tonight, after I've finally rebuilt my life, and expect me to just fall back into your arms. Love isn't just a word you say when you realize you've lost something valuable. Love is showing up every day. Love is paying attention. Love is making someone feel important." She looked at Adrian, whose eyes were filled with understanding and support. Then she looked back at Marcus. "You taught me how love is not supposed to feel, and now I'm learning how it should feel. So no, Marcus, I don't forgive you, and I don't want another chance with you." Marcus's face crumpled. "Amelia, please, I'll do anything. I'll change, I'll be different." "You should have changed when I was begging you," Amelia said sadly. "You should have been different when I was still your wife, but you weren't, and now it's too late. I hope you learn from this. I hope your next relationship is different, but I'm not going to sacrifice my peace and my happiness to teach you how to be a better person." She took Adrian's hand and looked at him. "Can we go back inside? I want to celebrate this night with people who genuinely care about me." Adrian nodded, squeezing her hand gently. They started to walk past Marcus, but he called out one last time. "I see it now," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "I see everything I was too blind to notice before. You were never the mistake, Amelia. I was." Amelia stopped and looked over her shoulder. "Yes, you were, but that was your lesson to learn, not mine to keep teaching you." She walked back into the ballroom with Adrian at her side, leaving Marcus alone in the hallway with the weight of his regrets. Inside, the celebration continued. Adrian led her to a quiet corner and wrapped his arms around her in a comforting embrace. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Amelia nodded against his chest. "I'm better than okay. I finally said everything I needed to say. I finally stood up for myself in a way I never could when we were married." Adrian pulled back slightly to look at her face. "I'm incredibly proud of you, and I know this is probably not the best time, but I need you to know something." Amelia looked at him with curiosity. "What is it?" "I'm falling in love with you," Adrian admitted. "I have been for months, and I understand if you're not ready for that, or if you need more time to heal. But after watching you face your ex-husband with such strength and dignity, I couldn't keep it in anymore. You are extraordinary, Amelia, and it would be an honor if you would let me show you every day what it feels like to be truly loved." Amelia felt new tears well up in her eyes, but these were tears of joy. "I'm falling in love with you too. You make me feel seen and valued in ways I never thought possible." Adrian smiled and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. "Then let's start fresh. No more looking back at what was. Only looking forward to what can be." Amelia nodded, feeling a sense of peace and certainty wash over her. "I'd really like that." As they walked back to their table, hand in hand, Amelia caught one last glimpse of Marcus leaving the ballroom. His shoulders were slumped, and he looked utterly defeated. A small part of her felt pity for him, but a larger part felt free. She was no longer chained to his opinion, or defined by his inability to love her properly. 6 months later, Amelia and Adrian stood together at the grand opening of their collaborative design showroom. It was a space where Adrian's architectural models and Amelia's interior design concepts were displayed side by side, showcasing to potential clients how their combined talents could create truly special spaces. Sophia was there, along with dozens of clients, colleagues, and friends who had supported Amelia on her journey. As Amelia looked around the room, seeing the life she had built, she felt an overwhelming gratitude. She had gone from feeling like a mistake to knowing she was a masterpiece. She had transformed her pain into purpose and her heartbreak into healing. Marcus had taught her what she didn't want in a relationship. Adrian was teaching her what she did deserve. And most importantly, she had taught herself that her worth never depended on someone else's ability to see it. The biggest mistake was never Amelia. The biggest mistake was anyone who didn't recognize how extraordinary she truly was. And standing in her showroom, surrounded by love and success, Amelia knew she would never forget that truth again. Her story wasn't about a woman broken by cruel words. It was about a woman who rebuilt herself into something even stronger and more beautiful than before. And that, my friends, is a story worth celebrating. What was the most joyful moment of the confrontation between Amelia and Marcus? Share your final reflections on Amelia's journey to self-worth. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to click Yipua. Share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more meaningful stories. An open ending. The choice Amelia faced. This section starts immediately after the tense confrontation between Amelia, Marcus, and Adrian at the gala hallway. Amelia returned to the ballroom with Adrian, leaving Marcus alone in the hallway with his gnawing regret. She tried to focus on the awards ceremony and Adrian's warm smile, but she could feel her hands still trembling from the confrontation. Adrian led her to a quiet corner of the room and wrapped his arms around her. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Amelia nodded. "I'm better than okay. I finally said everything I needed to say. I stood up for myself." "I am so proud of you," Adrian said, pulling her back to look into her eyes. "And I know this is probably not the best time, but I need you to know this. I'm falling in love with you, Amelia. I have been for months. I understand if you're not ready. But after watching you face your ex-husband with such strength and dignity, I couldn't keep it in any longer. You are extraordinary, and I want to be with you, if you'll let me." Amelia's eyes welled up, but not with sadness. I'm falling in love with you too. You make me feel seen and valued in ways I never thought possible." Adrian smiled, wiping the tears from her cheek. "Then let's start fresh. No more looking back at what was, only looking forward to what can be." They held hands and returned to the table. That night, Amelia won the award, and she felt like the happiest woman in the world, beside the man who saw her true worth. The uncertain morning. A silent letter. The next morning, as Amelia woke up in her studio apartment, she found a plain white, unsealed envelope tucked under the door. Inside was a simple, unadorned card, with only a handwritten note in the script she instantly recognized. Marcus. "Amelia, I haven't slept since last night. I drove to the apartment we shared, and then I drove here. I spent the entire night replaying every moment. You were right. You were never the mistake. I was. I won't apologize or beg you to come back here. I know those words are meaningless now. I only want you to know that, for the first time in my life, I understand what I lost. I lost the woman who built my empire with her intellect and her love. I lost the person capable of changing the world, while I was too busy trying to control it. I will never bother you again, unless you seek me out. But I will not vanish. I will change. I will become the man you deserved. Not for you, but for myself. And if, a year from now, 2 years from now, you still haven't found the peace you deserve, and if you are curious to see what that man looks like, I will be there. The choice is yours, always yours. Marcus, the undecided future. Amelia's new path. Amelia read the letter over and over, feeling her heart clench not with pain, but with confusion. This was not the man she once knew. There was no arrogance, no demand, only the painful acknowledgement of his fault. At the same time, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Adrian. "Good morning, award winner. I'm downstairs with coffee and croissants. Can we talk about designing our showroom?" Amelia looked out the window, where Adrian was smiling, his eyes filled with respect and an unconditional kind of love. She looked down at Marcus's letter, feeling the weight of a promise of change, of an old, forgotten love that now wanted to be salvaged. Amelia had won her victory. She had the freedom and respect she craved. Now she had to make the hardest choice. Should she move forward on the fresh, healthy path with Adrian, who loved the woman she is now? Or should she wait, even subconsciously, to see if Marcus could truly change to become the man she once loved? She folded the letter, placed it in her desk drawer, right next to the blueprint for their new showroom design. Amelia smiled, locked her door, and walked downstairs to meet Adrian. She chose the present. She chose her career. She chose respect. But as she walked away, a question lingered in the crisp New York morning air. Would Amelia ever open that drawer again to check on Marcus's promise of change? Open-ending question for the audience. If you were Amelia, what would you do with Marcus's letter? Accept the change. Keep the letter and monitor Marcus's progress. Burn the past, throw the letter away, and focus entirely on the relationship with Adrian. Comment your choice and why.